Hello everyone, welcome back to Maritime SoftwareHub, the People podcast. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by Marcus May. He's the co-founder of Mustaa, I should say, as in Mustaa Point with the vessels and where you gather together. Just want to make sure that's clear there. If I've got it wrong, I apologise, Marcus. But thanks so much for joining. I know Thomas Joyce referred us, and he's been a real kind of advocate of the podcast and us over the years. So thank you, Thomas. We're now into season 5 of the podcast. You're the first episode of this season. I think we're at episode 101 or so. So, Marcus, thanks for coming on. I'd love it if you could tell us a bit about yourself and obviously a bit more about your background.
Thanks, Callum. Firstly, I think Mustaa, that's intentional almost. I kind of want it to be like the Nike of the maritime industry. Is it Nike or Nike? Who knows? But as long as you're talking about us, then ultimately that's a positive thing. So my background, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Mustaa, and we've been going at it now for 2 years. I guess if I just share my vision just quickly, and then I'll give you a bit of history about myself. We basically make it really easy for people to share in the ownership of yachts, utilizing crypto, and getting access to a global fleet of yachts. So instead of having one particular vessel, you could go to a location and actually sail. My history, though, I grew up in the English Riviera, in a place called Exmouth, and I just kind of was a water baby from the beginning. And so I've done all those water sports, kite surfing, surfing up in Cornwall, and then sailing ultimately. And I think, with a passion industry like we're in, I kind of just chased the hobby as far as it could take me, and studied yacht design and engineering at Southampton Solent, which then took me to work for Sunseeker as an intern, and then to the Netherlands, and which is where I'm based now, working for Fedship previously for 5 years as a structural engineer, and so that's kind of my background.
Yeah, brilliant. And you've obviously kind of been bitten by that, I guess, kind of entrepreneurial bug where you've obviously spotted a gap in the market perhaps, or an opportunity. And I'd say without meaning to be crude, but from a relatively young age, you've kind of taken on that sort of, gone down that path of trying to build a business, which is fantastic. And I know how challenging that is from our perspective as well. So congratulations. I'm sure it's been an exciting and kind of interesting road so far.
Yeah, it's really funny. I remember when I quit my job and I said, I'm going to start my own business. The amount of people that said, oh, wow, that's really brave, that came up to me. And I was like, I don't understand what you're really talking about or meaning from that. But after the few years, I really do understand where they were coming from. And I appreciate that vote of confidence. It is a really tough challenge. But ultimately, it was something that's always been on my heart, I guess. Do you know the show Dragon's Den or Shark Tank?
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm. So I kind of grew up with that, and there's always been a dream of mine and a wish of mine just to, invent and do cool stuff ultimately. And I think there was a moment in the workforce where I just decided, time is now. I feel like there's a shift in the market, and so there's some new technology that is exciting. So let's go and let's see if we can fulfill my full potential as a human being, right? And that's ultimately, the goal, really.
Yeah, and I guess, on that point, in terms of when you were doing your studies or when you were starting out early in your career, was there a point or something, did something happen where you thought about building your own business, or was there something you spotted in terms of an opportunity or anything particular?
I actually started a business when I was 18 with my best friend. It was on the company's house and in the UK, and we tried to build headphones back when we back when wired headphones were really popular, I think they're becoming popular again, funnily enough, but we tried to have modular headphones. So instead of replacing a good quality headphone with a poor one because of the cost, you could just fix the little part that was broken and keep the same quality.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, Bluetooth headphones came about, and then the whole business model was kind of trounced, and too young as well, and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's always been in my blood to like try and create something. The notion of like being able to own your decisions and make decisions that you from talking to people from like a gut feeling just is really nice and exciting, and makes me feel like I'm really doing the thing that I've been put here to do ultimately. I talk to a lot of my friends. I don't know if you have the same situation, but starting a business is not for everybody. And in all honesty, like if you find joy from working 9 to 5 and doing some pretty amazing stuff in your job, then power to you. Go and follow that till the wheels come off. But for me, it was this chaos and see what we can do.
Yeah, exactly. I think people thrive in different situations, and I still think it's fantastic if people have a steady job and they learn their craft in businesses and different environments, and then they kind of go on and take their learnings into their own business if that's what they plan to do. So I think it's really interesting. And just looking back at your university and studies, like, I mean, I've actually been, didn't study at Solent, but I've been there, and we've presented done a careers fair and that type of thing to the students about the opportunities in the maritime technology space in terms of careers. But what was it like? What was the sort of setup there in terms of on their naval architecture and the technology pieces? Do they have things like simulators, or what type of tools were they were you able to use there?
Yeah, so there were quite a lot of tools that were actually really specific to Solent, Southampton Solent University. So, for example, the towing tank, there was like, if I remember, 2 in the country. One of them was at Solent University, and it was used all over Europe. You'd have the Wolfson unit come over and actually use the towing tank, etc. as well, just to understand hull forms, see if we can get some new hull forms up and running and standardized too. So like to have that ability to see what that was like was really formative as a naval architect or an engineer.
Yeah.
And then of course, we were messing around with the new 3D applications, which allowed me to get my job in the beginning of my career, and ultimately under the tutelage of Giles Barkley, who was at the time, and I still think now, the principal of the course. We had a really good time, and ultimately it's really the network that you build from that course, because it's a very how do you say, it's a very international course. You get people all over the world coming to that, just because of the tools that is provided and the history ultimately. If you can go to a lot of yacht builders, and you might find someone from Southampton Solent they're designing or doing some work there. And so you got a global network of people that you were friends and had a few pints at the bars that you would go to. So amazing. Brilliant.
And I'm sure you kept a lot of those contacts, and I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from university, especially if you study in the maritime field. Like you said, it's so international. You never know who you're going to be kind of learning next to, and who you're going to meet during those years. And many go on to be either charterers or work in ship owners' offices or brokers and things. So, and obviously on your side, on the engineering side as well. So it's so worthwhile. If anyone's thinking, weighing up whether or not to kind of take on a master's or study a specific course, I still think it's 100% worthwhile. I appreciate it can be expensive to a point, but it pays dividends later on, I think.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. All lessons are expensive.
Yeah.
Whether it's money or pain. Yeah.
Pain, yeah, exactly, or time or whatever. So
yeah.
Awesome. So what we're going to talk about today, so we've kind of put the title of the discussion is Fractional Ownership and the Future of Maritime Assets. So do you want to quickly just explain that kind of title and what we mean about fractional ownership, and where obviously you talked about the blockchain piece and what you're thinking around that?
I guess like to summarize it in literally a few words, it's effectively a timeshare for yachting. But again, to delve a little bit deeper, with blockchain, we have the ability to represent assets digitally. And so what ultimately we can start to do is we can really create a foundational tech layer of the industry as it stands. And right now there are already traditional companies like the Moorings Company and Sunsail. They're probably the largest fractionalized ownership company with around 900 vessels in their fleet. You buy a share into a particular vessel, but also then you have the ability to go on to sister ships, and then globally. And then the vessel, when you're not using it, is then chartered out and it generates an income. And so each vessel ultimately works as a business. It has its own P&L, and you then have access, because you're providing that supply for the demand of chartering. You then have access globally wherever you'd like to sell to. And so all we're doing is we're saying, hey, that's a really good working model. We know it's a good working model because they're very successful. They have ownership of the whole vertical, in the sense of they own marinas. They probably own, they actually own the outfittings and also the manufacturing side of it with Leopard yachts, etc. And so all we're trying to do is make that efficient on just using software and digitalization. And so what we have built is the ability to say, hey, you have this yacht as a token, or as a little bit of metadata on digitally. It's on a blockchain. And Callum and Marcus owns this vessel because I can see that I'm attached to that particular vessel online. And then not only that, everybody can see that. And so where we would like to then go to is all of a sudden you have a network of vessels, a network of owners. Then you can start building middleware and infrastructure for those owners and vessels. And then expand to for-profit applications as well, all with the central foundation of the vessel information. So no longer are our apps trying to cultivate information to get usage by sign-ups, etc. It's already done there because the ownership of the vessel creates that information already, if that makes sense at all. We've discussed it as a yacht passport, ultimately, on chain, on a blockchain.
Understood. Fantastic. And I guess then the kind of key challenge that you've identified and you're trying to solve is, and I apologize if you've kind of touched on that just now, but do you mind kind of elaborating on that?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that I think is going to be the case is like, as an industry, are we mature enough to have some really amazing applications that can really serve the user and have a unified experience for people? And you have that with the likes of other industries. The automotive industry has a really good mapping technology. It's got really good, applications that serve the user. Do we have enough people for that to be the same in the yachting industry? And if not, how do we actually get to the point where a lot of apps and applications on the for-profit layer and middleware, how can that serve the user in the best possible way such that actually going sailing is really simple and accessible for people? And I think apps are probably one of the biggest things in our history to make things in generally, to make things accessible for other people. Music has changed, video has changed, podcasting is something that's very amazing right now. And so it's that like source of information that is really difficult, I think, for the yachting industry to trust and to build if you're building an app by yourself. And so if you can get into a network and say, hey, there are all these boats in the particular network, and I can build an app that can help with insurance providing, or I can help with, getting a loan on the vessel, or I can even do maritime monitoring on the vessels that are in this network. I think that's pretty amazing. But ultimately, like, what we want to do is just make it really easy for people to go sailing. Yeah. That's really the core of it.
That makes sense. And I guess from that initial concept, then, as you've been evolving the business in time, how have things kind of changed since you started? Has the direction changed? I'm sure it has, as very often.
Yeah, huge. Loaded question. It feels like, Callum, as you probably know already.
Yeah.
Initially, with my design background, what we were trying to do was create a yacht marketplace that utilizes 3D assets or designs to sell vessels, and then prove design ownership. So I designed this particular yacht with NFT and I guess blockchain technology. And so that NFT would say, hey, Marcus designed this. If you copy it, okay, then you copied it. But I can track back to the first iterative of this design was Marcus. And so that's what we started with. But, it was a hard slog. I'm very much someone that will knock on doors. And so after a few doors that I knocked on, it was like, well, I think we're trying to change behavior a bit too much. And so what is it then that's a little bit easier that people can understand, and we can still utilize the same technology? And so we kind of then pivoted to more this shared ownership route, where we can facilitate ownership and shared ownership, whilst also utilizing the same blockchain technology.
That makes sense. And I guess people sometimes are a little bit, I guess over the recent years have been a bit skeptical of crypto and blockchain and I guess the sort of the fluctuations and they're quite extreme investments and things, especially on the crypto side. So are people you're speaking to kind of still a little bit skeptical about it, or do you feel like Mustaa is adopting it in a very kind of simple and a safer kind of way?
Yeah, it's not even skepticism. Sometimes, like, some people really just think it's a scam, and so that's the battle that we're trying to fight for sure. On the one level, like, we don't want people to even know that we utilize crypto or blockchain. We want that really all behind the curtains because of its efficiency ultimately.
Okay.
So like that is the main priority. Whilst we're early, the people that understand it understand blockchain and crypto, and so the people that we're serving right now are people that understand the technology. They understand how it works, and so sooner or later we're going to get to a point where you won't even need to know. But right now it's we're getting some new people into sailing ultimately, and going to these really amazing places in Croatia or Sardinia, and then owning vessels.
And do you think this could cross over eventually into the kind of the wider shipping markets, like the cruise or commercial shipping, or are you seeing examples of blockchain technology in other kind of verticals?
I think I don't really know too much about commercial maritime and shipping. I very much assume that the technology in commercial and shipping is a lot better than pleasure and leisure, and that's usually how the maritime industry evolves, is through commercial and then it goes into pleasure. But I think blockchain as a technology is foundational to where we're heading as a society in the future. This ability for having a public database or public ledger that anyone can see is really revolutionary. And I think in the future, where we have all these AI agents, for example, interacting with the internet, I think value is going to be transferred through blockchain tech. And so if you're going to ask or see when trying to find information, that public ledger is definitely the way to go ultimately, not through siloed databases that companies own.
Yeah, no, I think we're seeing that as well. I mean, some of the clients that we've spoken to over the years, especially on the supply chain side of technology, we've seen blockchain being implemented, and a little bit less so from what I'm seeing on the more general commercial maritime kind of solutions to do with voyage optimization and that type of thing, or even the kind of the pre and post fixture pieces. So it's definitely something that I know it was a very hot topic 4 or 5 years ago, and I think it kind of in the circles that we're speaking to on the commercial maritime side, I think there's still a little bit of skepticism about it. So I think if there's examples and showcases like you're proving, it's a great sort of guinea pig in a way, I guess, for other industries to sort of follow.
What do you think causes that skepticism in your eyes?
I think it's still a very much a legacy, a traditional industry, the commercial maritime space. I think even just the process of digitizing in a fairly simple form for those kind of more traditional ship owning families and businesses, I think that's the first hurdle. And then when you add in the complexity of blockchain and other technology pieces, it's almost like a layer deeper. But I think for those larger, in particular, kind of there's a number of more innovative, let's say, ship owning businesses that have digital teams. They're very focused on transformation and that type of thing, and that's why we're seeing they even you see joint ventures and they set up their own kind of digital businesses and things. So I think it's there. It's something I'm learning about as well. But
there's definitely a marketing problem in blockchain and crypto that I guess we're all trying to address. The people who are building in there, there's too much tech jargon ultimately as well.
But I do think, I mean, I was a shipbroker years ago, back in early 2000s and up until around 2012, and even back then I would spend quite a lot of time with, for example, like the ship owners' sons or daughters, that younger generation, and they're all studying technology, and this is 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So that new generation is coming through now, and they're much more kind of tech savvy and things. So I think it's happening now where they're being more very much more widely using these technology platforms.
And open to it.
Yeah, so it's an exciting time. So I guess since you've been kind of running the business, are there any kind of, I'm sure there are, particular, I guess from a business owner perspective, like key wins or achievements that you're really proud of that have helped kind of keep things going, keeping smiling.
To keep the motivation going, for sure. It's the mission is really just to get yachting and sailing more accessible, and it was one of the main reasons why I actually quit my job as well. I have friends who have the ability to go sailing, and yet they don't, because they don't even know where to start. And so as someone who's so passionate about it, I was there like, well, something has to change here. And okay, let me see if I could do that change. I had that delusion that I could facilitate that. And so the mission has always been to make it accessible for people to go sailing. And we had some new sailors come with us in our first year to Sicily, and they just kind of got addicted. They've got their skipper's license now, and they're coming back last year, 2025, and came with us for 30 days of sailing around the Mediterranean. And so I think like that for us was such a huge win emotionally and as well, just because it facilitates our mission. Now our tech may not be fully developed, but ultimately we're still trying to do that and repeat that process of getting more newbies into sailing and joining our digital yacht club ultimately.
Yeah, well, I think it sounds very exciting, and I mean, I can't sail. I've never learned to sail, but I have like
you should come.
I have a yacht license, powerboat license, which is so I've never learned to actually sail, but we're here in Florida, so every occasionally we rent a boat, a little yacht, a bow rider, and just go out on the lakes here, which is so nice. So I completely understand why you encourage more people to do it. So it's very nice. But good. Okay, and I guess if we look back a bit more on your kind of switching from that engineering piece to entrepreneurship and starting the business, are there any kind of tips or advice perhaps you can give to people in a similar position that might be weighing up their options and pursuing a potential opportunity?
Yeah. With that particular question, it's unfortunate because all the answers are pretty cliche. But in all honesty, they ring true quite dramatically. I think first of all, if you're weighing up the option, you can start and get going. See how you progress. See if there's traction, and then if there is traction, whatever that is for you, quit and don't look back. But there's never a good time to, I guess, quit your job to pursue entrepreneurship. So don't try and figure out when is really the best time. And of course, it's easy for me because I don't have kids or responsibilities as much as just rent and food and myself really. So it's easy for me to say that, but never a good time. And then also, the biggest lesson, especially in for us, we are really trying to dream big and trying to utilize technology and do all these crazy stuff and have all these amazing ideas. I think entrepreneurs always will have amazing, unbelievable ideas and an untapped supply of them. But really the main aim at the very beginning and even now a few years later is have a product that you can sell and just keep selling it, and everything that you do is built towards helping that process of selling your product. And so the amazing ideas that you might have that sound really interesting and cool, if it's not actually something that people are going to be buying, it's not really actually valued at all. It's valued up in the air and in your mind and with your friends. But if someone's paying for it, then okay, now you can start going and start scaling that and building processes around that for sure. Yeah,
no, I couldn't agree more. And I think when you do start out, you have lots of ideas, and even a few years later, you readjust. And one thing I've learned after 6 years of having the business here is just staying focused, having remained on the track of the core business you do. And I think you get, I think you call it shiny object syndrome, where you go chase other you think it's associated revenue and that sort of stuff, and ultimately it just deviates from your main focus. And now I've spent a lot of time, certainly towards the end of last year, just pulling everything back, just recruitment, just our kind of 3 core markets, and it's been so much better, so much. Everything just feels more aligned, and you can breathe again, basically.
Yeah, totally. I couldn't agree more with that, actually, Callum. There's obviously so much that I want to do with AI, for example, and all that kind of stuff. But really, just trying to say, hey, let's build out our product one way we can sell it efficiently and improve all the KPIs that we have. It's amazing. That's it.
Oh, well, I'm really looking forward to seeing how the business evolves, and obviously want to stay in touch with you. And is there anything else you'd like to share about obviously the business and Mustaa and anything we talked about today?
Well, I think like 2026 is going to be quite interesting with us. We're going to do a lot of like brand activations at particular conferences. So that's fun, and you can find out more about that on our Substack. But everything is on our website, which is at mustaa.io. We are continuously iterating our product, and so we're always trying to release something new. And finding out what is working well with everybody. But ultimately, if you're interested in coming sailing, and we make sailing again a little bit more accessible by cultivating group tours. So you only charter a cabin instead of charter a whole boat, or rent a cabin with some really amazing people. Then we're going to Sardinia and Croatia this year, and then further afield. So if you'd like to come to that, then that's also going to be exciting and very fun. We always have a lot of fun. Yeah,
I bet. Talking back to my kind of university and traveling days, backpacking days, going on the Great Barrier Reef and a few other trips over the years and in Egypt, and they were fantastic. And that was just by myself at the time, and didn't know anybody. And you have about 12 or 16 people there. It was amazing, diving and things. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, we it's awesome. I truly, it's like the water is everything to me. It's snowing right now in the Netherlands, and I just kind of want to be on a beach in somewhere warm for sure.
Awesome. Okay, and I guess outside of work, I appreciate you very dedicated and lots of time taken up by the business. And we touched upon this earlier, but what type of things do you like to do to sort of recharge or take your mind off work?
We spoke about this just before we started, but I just picked up DJing. I just turned 30, so I was like, well, DJs are pretty cool. So let me see if I can put my hand towards that. And I think being creative is a really wonderful thing. But especially with entrepreneurs, you can be creative and suddenly all of a sudden, suddenly you becomes a work thing. I got into design, web design, and all of a sudden, I do that for Mustaa. And that's really fun, but I really just want the hobby that I can just put some hours in, focus away from work, and maybe bring some people happiness, like my friends, or annoy them because I keep playing the same tracks over and over again. So either way.
No, great. Well, I think the more you can do that, the better. So it's really, really great to have you on the show, Marcus, and I really wish you the best with the business and everything. I think you mentioned obviously the website, but if anybody does have any questions or wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, my personal email is marcus@mustaa.io, so you can reach out there. And then my Twitter is Mark Kurama, after the Riva Aquarama, so MARCUARMAMA. But again, that's you can find me on socials and things of that nature. There's no problem.
Brilliant. Well, we'll make sure we tag everything when we share the post. And thank you to everyone, all the listeners, for tuning in again. Really excited to sort of launch this season. And we're going to really try and focus a little bit more on on the guest's background, their career, what it's like in their particular role, whether it's a leadership, a founding position, or a more hands-on sales or product management type of function. I really want to try and help people understand what it's like in a SaaS-focused business or a technology-focused company and things. So yeah, Marcus, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you to everyone for listening, and I'll speak again soon.
Thanks.